am joined by the incredible Ruby Rare today, and we are going to be getting into it because I want to talk about sex, baby.
Yay. And I'm always up to talking about sex.
How are you doing?
I'm doing like so aggressively mixed.
That's
but
a solid answer.
Yeah, like there's some real highs and some real lows right now. And I think maybe that's just what being alive is like.
And I think that's okay.
Yeah, I'm like hanging in there, I think. How are you?
Good. I'm good. I mean, I think like I spoke about it on the podcast, I came off sertraline, antidepressants, which I don't think I needed at the time. And I've leveled back out and I'm like feeling emotional, and which is good. And like I'm allowing myself to like, you know, feel what you say. You can feel like
all the highs and lows.
Highs and lows. So I think like we try to brush them under, but yeah, I feel good.
Have you got hornier?
Yes.
Yeah.
I mean,
congratulations. You know, welcome back.
The horn never left, but
okay.
The ejaculation did. The climax did.
Interesting.
Yeah,
Like
I don't think the horn will ever leave, but like
I guess I know it from a lot of different perspectives, but I think particularly with like AFAB bodies, it's maybe associated a bit more with like sex drive and libido and arousal in general, and then more AMAB penis-y bodies. Everyone's just really obsessed with cum.
Yes.
Like scientists, humans, like we're all like, where is it? Are you doing it? You're not doing it? And it's harder to measure that in a body like mine.
Well, I think what I found really weird about it was like the want for sex was still there, but like, I don't know, the feelings weren't. Like it wasn't as pleasurable, which was strange. And I thought like, it's weird that something's meant to make you feel better. It's just numbing everything.
But also that we have a really prescriptive idea of what sex is meant to look like massively, but also feel like. And like pleasure is really expansive.
Totally.
Like, but we have it. I say we, but like I can talk just about myself. I think anyone feels this like expectation going into a sexual encounter from a societal perspective, but also from your own internal messaging to be like, this is what I want from this. This is what a successful encounter looks like. And it's really scary, but I think quite important to disrupt that and challenge all those expectations because they weigh us down. They're not doing any good.
Totally. I feel like even though like, I guess a lot of the time when I was growing up, I felt like I had to, when I was starting exploring sex, I fell into roles that were probably not, well, at the time, maybe it was just because I was my height, basically, within the queer community. So there was like, rigid roles straight away. Like obviously younger, slimmer, shorter, guys like you automatically take a type of role, like as a more submissive, but like that wasn't always the case, you know? And I feel like now I've very like, I've had a lot of sex.
Congrats.
Love sex. Thank you. And no, I feel like I know like what I like, and it's very fluid. Sex is very fluid.
I agree. I think similar but different. When I first started kind of having more casual sex in my early 20s and getting involved in like BDSM scenes. And back then I was sleeping much more with men. I was like straight with a bit of extra. And now that's basically switched. But then it was like being in a kink scene, being a young woman, automatically that is a submissive role. And I'm not interested in subbing for men. Like that is not my bag anymore. So I think I've felt a lot of shame for falling into that prescriptive role. And then I kind of rejected it for a really long time. And in the last couple of years, I've come back into that of going like, oh my God, I can be so fucking submissive. Like I am an exceptional bottom, but I like queering that really helps me access it better.
Totally.
And it's like, it's been really sweet. It's like saying hello to all of these parts of myself from 10 years ago. And it's like completely different, but also completely the same again.
I feel like sex gets better as you get older.
Oh my God. How old are you?
32.
Oh my, I'm about to turn 32 next week.
Oh, amazing, yeah.
So we were maybe same school year. But still, okay, so 2 peas in the pod.
Yeah.
I am so excited for the next decade of sex.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think sex in my 20s there were some real nice moments, but it was complicated.
Totally.
And now I actually feel ready for what this bit's going to be. I just read All Fours by Miranda July. Have you heard of it?
Yeah, I've heard of it, but not.
It's so good.
Yeah.
But that's really made me think about what sex in my 40s, 50s, 60s, 70s, 80s is going to look like. And I'm really excited for like how that changes.
And that's good to hear as well. And that's good to speak about because I think for a lot of society expectations of women, it goes the other way.
Yeah.
Like they expect it to go the other way and like you don't have sex. And like, you know, men can always spread their seed, but like women have like a biological clock and that's like what they're, and like especially when we have conversations about what assigning female bodies to, it limits to that, and it ignores so many other different things. So I think like hearing that is empowering.
From my perspective, through like my work in sex education, but also just like me as a person, it is almost impossible to have conversations about anything to do with sex, like healthcare wise, politically, personally, without the absolute like involvement of a penis, and that being the most important part of an encounter. And I collect vintage sex manuals. I have a really great expansive collection of like stuff from the last 100 years. And there is a late 70s book called The Joy of Lesbian Sex, which is exquisite. I'm reading it right now. It's just such a joy. But that idea of really like, what does it look like to think about sex and pleasure without masculinity, I guess, is what we're talking about now. But often that is also like associated with like the physicality of a penis. I'm in 1970s brain, so I'm just wary that the language now like has changed and evolved, obviously. But it's really shocking to think about that, even though like that's not the sex I have very often anymore. It's still something that kind of like governs the way I think about all of this, because we're talking about heteronormativity, aren't we? Hey, but like it's pervasive. It like really takes over your life without realizing it.
Well, but it's everywhere.
Yeah.
Like you grow up, like I grew up seeing heteronormative sex everywhere. It's so normalized and so accepted. And I mean, we saw it's the male gaze. Like, like I remember like learning about the male gaze in sociology. I had that was like my favorite subject in A level, and I remember learning about that and being like, oh my God, this is like, it was opening my mind then, because I was like, okay, yeah, that makes so much sense. Like 96% of films are directed by men. Like all of like you're seeing everything from a point of view that doesn't represent me necessarily as a queer person who hasn't felt like my body is desired or that I am attractive because I don't fit these standard conventions. And that's hard to deconstruct. And that's why I think a lot of queers in the community, especially gay men, don't want to go out. They don't want to be more femme. They don't want to explore that side because it's easier and there's been ridicule and they're too afraid to express all of those sides, you know?
Yeah. And what our pleasure in sex looks like is seen as filthy and shameful and wrong, or it's seen as comical or invisible and less considered. Like it's been a real revelation for me in the last couple of years of like realizing how dismissive femme queer sex is. It's like the dykes are fucking. Like the fucking, it's wild. And that's just when it's not permitted. It's not allowed to be seen in the way that I sometimes envy more traditional, like gay, brazen sexual culture, because it feels easier to access. And like that is there for other genders. It absolutely is. It's just a bit harder to find and it's more niche. But I also know that that's easy to say. It's always like a grass is always greener thing, because, you know, being in those spaces also has challenges. But like, I want a grinder, I want a sniffies.
I think there should be that. I don't know why there isn't.
I think because we're all like, I think everyone's a bit scared in general of vulnerability. but like that risk taking stuff. Like I would feel so much easier like having really transactional, anonymous sex with a woman than with a man. But even then, the like threat of violence that I have experienced a lot in sexual situations makes me very wary of that. And that is not universal to like me or my gender or sex, obviously. But I think the sapphics just need to get a bit more bold and like shoot their shot and give it a go.
What? So field, I've explored field a bit.
I love
that's
field.
Kind of a place where I guess you could find, or is it, because you go into that with, these are what I like. And I think that's amazing because it's like you're laying it out straight away. But I guess, it's not as instant, is it? Because it is a bit of a build-up.
I adore Field. It's like my ultimate dating app for sure. And what I love in that is that it's so much about community building. So I am, I guess, honestly, if I'm being kind of a bit too honest, what I envy in something like Grindr is that there is, from my perspective, there can be a lot less emotion placed on that.
Yeah.
There are nice, simple things about that. And also there's challenges. So like, I know I'm getting into murky water, but I just would really like to see what that feels. I would love to go to a version of a sauna. And they do kind of exist for me, but they also kind of don't exist for me. And being very interested in queer history, there is a part of that like very masculine queered history that I am really fascinated by.
There is a lot, I guess, and you're right in the sense that like when you think about the queer masculine history, it's the cruising, it's the cottaging, it's the sauna, the bathhouses, it's the like dark rooms, and that doesn't really exist that much. I think like there's nights like Howl, which I think is amazing, who are very.
I want to talk to you about Howl. I'm so happy that you're involved with them. It's so cool.
I know, I love it. Well, that's amazing, and I think I love what they do, their ethos, and I was like totally. I think Sam's incredible, and I'm excited for what's going to happen, what they're going to do. But I think like being part of that, like that's more of a liberation. They want it to be inclusive, and I think that's so important. When I first moved to London, I felt like everywhere was inclusive, more so. Like maybe there was a bit bitchiness, maybe there was problems, but like it felt way more like everyone was together. Like you saw more people together in a club than you do now. Now it's very sex orientated, but like for a type of person.
Yeah, I agree, and I've not been to Hell yet, and I really want to. I think my ideal of like a dark room situation is a real mix of genders and sexualities all fucking. Like I want to be getting railed next to the gay boys. Yeah. And I want us to be like, woohoo, great.
Yeah, high five.
But I wonder how I would feel in that, because I think there's also still quite a lot of misogyny in those spaces and being like, hey, there's a pussy here. Yeah. You're cool with it?
Well, there's a lot of shame already with the dark rooms, I think, as well sometimes, because there's a reason you're going in there, and it's like some people like the anonymity, some people might not feel like they want to explore it in a different way. Like there's loads of things of deconstructing sex, because ultimately I think shame is at the root of so much that we have to deconstruct with it, because I grew up like feeling ashamed because I wanted to have sex with men at the time, and I was confused because I was wanting to have sex with girls as well. So it was like a really confusing thing. And like I think it's basically the biggest control is shame, even though sex is everywhere and porn is being watched more than it's ever been watched. And like categories like trans are like such a high fetish, like a number 3 most watched.
But you see it in direct correlation to what is being most kind of weaponized within like identity politics. So in the States, every year when Spotify Wrapped comes out, Pornhub does like a global review. Oh, that's like my favorite day of the year. It's so great. But they consistently in the South States in America, like in the USA, like racialized categories come up really high, because like think about the history of what has been transgressive and forbidden, and who has allowed to have agency in those spaces, and who has like, you know, had centuries of like history of being deeply controlled. I think what you see it as well with the trans like categories. It's so fascinating how we like take something so guttural and like non-verbal as desire, and then it gets computed through porn into all of these like really specific rigid categories. Yeah. It's like I find that disconnect really fascinating to sit in, because I don't think I can categorize a lot of my desire. And like I know what to type if I want to like read or watch a certain thing, but it's so nuanced, and I kind of want to be surprised, and I want to be all consumed, but you can't like type that into a search engine.
It's true, and I feel like there's so much so interesting. I love this conversation, because I think it's something that I've always been inspired. Even with my drag, when I first started, I was inspired by strippers and sex workers. I'd go to like the East London Strippers Collective and like
love them.
do performances with them, because I love pole. And I remember just being part of a pole community that I was like, these are so empowering for everyone that's here. Like, I'm in my little pants, you're all in your bikinis or your bra and knickers. Like all body shapes, all sizes, all genders, doesn't matter. Everyone's just getting on with each other, like supporting each other. And like, I'm like, and dancing around the pole and looking sexy as fuck. And I'm like, that is so beautiful to be part of. And like, that is what society doesn't want people to be like.
I have to be careful when I talk about this, because it can quite easily sound a little bit like I'm like we're in a cult, and we're not. Or like it gets a bit matrixy of like red pill blue, but not in like manosphere way. But I really strongly believe that if people had access to sex positive communities, it would change the world, and how we communicate, and how we hold shame, and how we deal with conflict. And I remember like, this was before lockdown, maybe it was 2018 or 2019. The last London Porn Film Festival because they kind of got run out of town by TERF activists because it's like a very trans collective and like a very trans body of work. They tried to shut the festival down because there was one film that had some blood play in it, and there was like a legal loophole of being like, you can't show that because it's violent. Anyway, they had to spend loads of money, like finding a new venue, fighting this legal case from these like fucking trans phobes. And eventually we got this new secret location, but they found out about it. And so we all arrived to spend a day communing together, watching like really weird, beautiful, filthy art that people were making and holding that with like care and respect and sitting with difference and sometimes discomfort, but doing it with a lot of love and intrigue. And I remember walking past the entrance and it being this group of white women in their 50s and 60s who were holding up a bedsheet that on it had written, "This is what feminism looks like." And it was just so strange to have that, like looking at them and being like, if you could step in here, this might not be your scene and that's totally fine. But like, there is love in here and you are not leading with love.
No, not at all.
It's like rigid fear, hate, shut it down, control. And sadly, I think that's how most spaces in the world operate. And if you go into like sex work spaces, kink spaces, you know, more like radical leftist thinking spaces, that I think we're the ones who are really challenging that. And yet because it's about sex, we don't get taken seriously.
Yeah. And it's seen as like taboo or sneaky or dirty and like it's shameful. And it makes like, it reinforces the idea of like, and so what to reinforce the idea of queer people wanting sex? Like, I don't think that's a bad thing. So why are you making it a bad thing? Like, oh, they're just having sex in dark rooms or whatever. Like, so what? You're exploring your body. You're exploring other people's body. Like, as long as safety is there and consent, and like, that's obviously something that's so important. Liberation is for everyone. And feminism is meant to include liberation for everyone, right?
Yeah. And it's all meant to be like, choose your own adventure.
Totally.
And you can, and like, I want the option for everyone to be in a dark room if that feels safe for them, to like be tender and monogamous, which like is not a bad word. I'm not against that, but I challenge the institution of monogamy. Like whatever it is that feels right for you, I want you to be able to like confidently embark on that journey. And like very few of us get to do a version of that.
Really, it's so true. And like it's funny because you have brought the non-monogamy playbook.
I've done some self-promo and I feel weird about it.
It's come at a time for me, which is really, really, I think, important because I am single and I've been single for a few months now, about 4 months now. And I've been having sex and I've been loving it. But it's also like, and meeting people, but like I don't know what I'm really looking for at the minute. I think that's okay. My happiness is what I'm looking for. That's what I'm focusing on. Me being happy and just enjoying having fun and not, because I think I've been very relationship heavy over the years and we've explored things together.
Yeah.
And then sometimes when there's been boundaries and then maybe things weren't always so clear, like it became like a tricky one. Whereas I do think like ethical non-monogamy for me is something that I think would be what I would want to do. You know, I feel like you can't expect your partner to be just with you for the rest of your life.
I think that's quite unrealistic, but you know, some people are still holding out hope for that, and I respect that, and I think that can be really beautiful.
And if it happens, it happens, and that's
great.
amazing.
Like,
yeah.
and also some people just are genuinely not interested in transgressing and pushing things.
Yeah.
Like both of us clearly are like cheeky little babes who want to keep prodding and poking and seeing what else we can do. You don't have to do that. That's literally fine. I get quite frustrated by sex positivity spaces where it then becomes a competition of like how crazy you can be. Because anything I do, I'm not doing it to like, I like being a show pony, but I'm not doing it to show off.
Yeah.
Like I want to do it because I'm curious about it.
Totally.
And like, yeah, my boundaries might be a little bit further than some other people's, but then I've got other mates of mine where I'm like, I am a nun compared to you. And it is very refreshing to like get that perspective.
I've got some of those too. And I'm just like, we love that. But like, so this is your second book you've written?
Second book. First book was like called Sex Ed, and it was kind of like reintroducing sex education for adults and just wanting it to be really like kind.
Mm-hmm.
And I guess with this, because so far both of these are very like explainer, how to do these things. I snuck a bit more politics and like queer theory into this one. But I'm proud of her. I think it's really good. Like for for there to be more UK voices around polyamory and non-monogamy, because we still get so much of our like content about that from the States. And there's just like a different vibe in terms of the way that we communicate, and, you know, obviously the social messaging. It's the same, but also very different. So
I'm excited to read it. I feel like...
Thanks.
And Paul Brunson has written the...
Paul liked it.
We love Paul. That's so good. But like, how do you feel like when you were writing this, and like, what was there anything that like stood out to you that you learned, or that you went into thinking a certain thing and you came away from it like, oh, that's changed my mind?
Yeah, there was quite a lot
I bet.
in there.
Especially when you look at theory and stuff and like go through everything.
Yeah, big time. Because I've been non-monogamous in some way or another for a decade, which feels kind of wild. But I think professionally and personally, it meant that I felt ready to write that, because it was just like, cool, I've been around. I've like tried this in quite a few different configurations. The theory side was fascinating. I did quite a lot of reading about queer domesticity, which I really loved, because there's an academic called Sarah Ahmed who is my absolute fave, and she writes a lot about the concept of socially constructed happiness and like happiness objects. So if you think about like the marriage as like a theorized object, like the happiness that is promised in that, but also how limited and like prescriptive that can be. Again, not hating completely on marriage, but we've got to bring more voices into the mix here. And she talks about that, like, especially in queered existences and communities, that like being a guest in someone else's house and having to make that decision to lean into something more homonormative and assimilate and like have a little seat on the table and be grateful with what you got. But that's often also like squashing down the more marginalized and less represented people within your queer community, or kind of fighting back and really pushing into more radical spaces and being like, fuck it, I'm going to do things differently and I'm going to challenge stuff and be like, meh, which I'm here for. But then this other option of like queer domesticity, I'm not going to be able to get it fully right, but like we're allowed to like find peace and comfort and quiet. And I don't think I'd fully realized that yet. I think I still had this idea that like true queerness was completely like disruptive. And that's fucking knackering to exist in that all the time.
It is, yeah, for sure.
We've got to find some balance. And I loved, that chapter is all about queering relationships. And I keep coming back to that one.
Well, on the marriage topic, I think...
I'll marry you.
Let's do it. I feel like, though, it's an interesting one, because I was recently with a couple of friends who are married, gay men. They are married. They got married quite soon after they could, or like a few years after they could. And I just spoke to them about it. I said, what was the reason? And they said, I think it was for their families more, like their families could be part of the celebration of them coming together. And I just said, like, my worry is, and like, it's not supporting anyone. Like, if you want to get married, get married. Like, I might do it one day, but like in a different way. Like, I'd like get married on a beach, or like I don't know, do something that was like, not even marriage, but just like, I don't know, just the celebration, the party. That's all I want. But like, I feel like I asked them, what if the church could just take it away from us? You know, they've given us, now you can get married under God, like in this way, like when for many, many years we weren't ostracized and we were pushed out. And I'm like, it just worries me, like one day with everything that's happening now, are they just going to take it away? Is the church going to say, nope, actually gay marriage can't exist anymore? I feel like it's so like, that shouldn't be what we strive for as queer people, because we've already had to fight for a seat at the table. I think it's just like, it's a piece of paper at the end of the day.
It's interesting
that makes
hearing
it easier
that
for you for a lot of things.
Yeah. Oh my God, of course. And like, well, so my issue is less with the church or religion and their positioning with marriage, although I would like to see more queer acceptance within faith. Like, I'm not a person who grew up religious, so like I definitely am seeing that from the outside. But like, you know, a friend of mine who is a Christian realized that and she's like straight, she's one of my like straight girlies, had a really beautiful conversation with me the other day about like finding a new church, because she just realized that hers wasn't as inclusive as she thought it was. And she was like, I'm straight, but like I've got queer and trans friends. Like, that's really important to me. And she's found a space that like, pastor, what's the right word, is a lesbian. Very progressive.
Okay, cool.
So like, I love that. And I want queer people to feel accepted in faith spaces. The issue I have is like state sanctioned relationships, because it creates an immediate privilege and societal power dynamic. And that is we can look at that through queerness, but you can also look at that through like singleness. You are at a like financial, legal, societal disadvantage as a single person. And also, if we're pushing it in like the non-monogamy direction, what if you have more than one partner? How does that get legally recognized? There's some stuff in there. I spoke to like a really interesting lawyer about how like housing and end of life care and child custody, like all of that is really complicated if you're non-monogamous. And it's such a tiny minority who is experiencing that right now, but like it's real.
Yeah, it's happening. It's wild. I feel like, we are very like still quite, we thought we were so progressive or we were getting there into this place, but I feel like we're just, we're not. Like, I feel like we're going backwards, especially.
Right now, completely.
Right now we are, right? But then I feel with that becomes like the underground scenes rise up and art gets really sick and music gets amazing.
And we got to get angry and loud.
I so want to get angry. I'm like
weirder.
Literally saying it.
Yeah. I want to punch someone.
Yeah, like I'm like literally like, I've written a song the other day called Tank Top Bum Boys. It wasn't really written. It was more of a riot on the track, one take, just getting like saying whatever.
Beautiful.
And it was because Boris Johnson had said Tank Top Bum Boys about gays, like called us. So I think that's quite cool. Anyway, in that I'm like, get angry. Like it's a cool like riot track. So I'm excited for that. But like
I'm excited for the merch as well.
Yeah, we've got it. I've got it actually because I'm like playing with that because I think it's fun. Like I made the track, but it's also just like, this was a man that was in charge of our government, like calling gays the Tank Top Bum Boys. Thank you for the description because I love it. And
it's who we are.
I love wearing my tank top. I want to ask you some fun questions because I feel like that was amazing, and I'm so excited to read this book. So I'm glad we spoke about that. But I want to ask you, what's a myth about sex that always makes you laugh?
Ooh. I mean, this is back from my like days when I was teaching sex ed in schools.
Okay.
Yeah, because I was like the condom lady who would go around and teach about that. And like teenagers, the obsession with like ages of consent of being like, okay, but if you're 15 and your boyfriend's 16, but you turn 16 at midnight, but you have sex for the first time at 11:55 p.m. Like who's getting arrested? And being like, babes, not how it works.
Yeah.
Don't worry about that. So yeah, I think that there's still so much misconception about contraception. I think right now I get very worried and angry about like how, sorry, but these are meant to be fun questions. This is getting serious.
I love it. Let's go.
The history of hormonal contraception is fucked in terms of who it was tested on and how racialized that was and how still understudied and like undervalued particularly women's pain and bodies are. But that also doesn't mean I think we should just throw out hormonal contraception because then we start getting a little bit into like anti-vax trad wife territory of being like, I'm superior because my body is natural and my hormones are natural. And I'm like, no, run, this is really bad.
Yeah.
So there's a lot of myths there and like holding the nuances rather than it being really tempting to just like pick a side and go medicine or like anti-medicine.
And also I feel like actually we should have the contraceptive stuff for men because I know they had a few side effects.
It needs to hurry up. They had a few side effects, little poppets. I'm so sorry.
But it's wild to me that's like, okay, but then we're going to put a coil in an arm or like give you a pill every day that's going to make you...
I was once working in a clinic and someone came in, a teenager came in and like every single nurse there tried to have a look. She had a implant put into her upper arm. They didn't know where it went. They were like, we just don't know.
Oh my God.
It's just bodies are weird and something has happened here and it's somewhere else in your body. And like that's one, quite funny, but also terrifying and like
especially
needs to be
at that young
studied.
age, yeah.
But the fact that we're like, wow, men like really shouldn't have mental health side effects because of this. Well, actually, I think the most exciting male contraceptive is an injection into your balls. And obviously no one wants that. But it's like a gel that's long-term dissolvable that like stops. It's like a kind of semi-permanent vasectomy.
Okay.
Which I think would be amazing, but I just don't think we could convince the straight boys to be like, let me just inject your balls for a minute.
Well, maybe there's some that
some
do
of them,
it anyway.
Some of them would love it.
some do it anyway with testosterone, but
that's very true.
If you tell them it makes them more masculine, maybe.
No, but the whole point of that is then like, and then you will come, but there won't be sperm in it, and suddenly that's much less important because they don't get to feel big and strong.
It's like when you get a dog done. That's because like I had an ex-boyfriend as an ex for a reason. He was like, "Oh, I'm not getting my like puppy done because I don't want to demasculate him," and like that's his mentality with it. And then his dog's just going around humping everyone and being really aggressive. And I'm like, well, it's not for you, babe. Okay, so what's sexier, confidence or curiosity?
Literally my two favorite things. That's so hard. Curiosity is way sexier.
Yeah?
Yeah. Confidence can come out in different ways. I don't need bravado. I need like groundedness plus curiosity.
Always stay curious. We love that. One word that instantly will kill the mood.
One word.
My safe word is avocado.
My safe word used to be pineapple, and then I was like, too many syllables. We're doing green, amber, red. Like, let's just. I think even in like a queered trans environment, daddy. I can't do daddy.
Can't do daddy.
I can't.
I mean, I've definitely done daddy.
Yeah, and I'm so here for it, and I kind of would love to, but it's just not. It's not for me.
I can't have sir.
Sir is on the cusp for me.
Like, I personally, someone said it to me recently, and I'm like, what am I giving sir? I don't know. Like, I mean, it was hot in the moment, I guess, but I feel like afterwards there was.
But mummy, I can do. Mummy's hot. We need more mummy representation and visibility.
Yeah.
But yeah, daddy, particularly like with men, I like absolutely not.
Lights on or lights off? I feel like this is a hard one because I wouldn't have overhead lighting like fluorescent on.
No, I'd have like sexy mood lighting or afternoon fuck.
Yeah.
I think that's the superior time of day to have sex.
Oh, go-to snack after sex.
Ooh.
I'm still old school. I have a cigarette.
You know what? Every once in a while, that is a real treat. Okay, if I'm being really bougie, I love like mangoes when they're good and when you like get the right season, like Alfonso mangoes. Oh. And then any kind of fruit where you get to be a bit like sticky and sweaty and like eating a whole mango. I'll just be ready to go again.
Yeah. I'm going to do truth or myth now.
Okay.
You can't get pregnant from pre-cum.
That's not true. I mean, it's kind of less likely, but it happens.
It can happen.
Don't fuck around. Like, I have empathy for it, but it also pisses me off because I think if people were more conscious of their sexual health, it would actually mean they were able to have more fun. Because if you've got that risk in the back of your mind, that is doing something emotional that's like stopping you from really getting into it or being as present or accessing your pleasure, or you're doing it to the detriment of someone else and the risk of their health. So like condoms are great.
Yeah.
Like we need to bring back condoms. PrEP is great as well. And like DoxyPep is great, but like condoms, come on guys, please.
I think what I love about, because obviously not everyone, but what I love about gay men maybe, and like maybe some more queer, but I go test every 6 weeks. I know a lot of people in my community or people that do, but not everyone does.
Yeah.
And I feel like a lot of like, I'm asking like my straight friend and they were like, I've not been tested 2 years. And I was like, what? But like, I don't know, maybe it's different.
But that's why now like more straight people are diagnosed with HIV now.
I know, which is insane.
I think it's like men who have sex with men. That's the study.
Yeah.
But yeah, you can get pregnant from pre-cum, guys.
Yeah.
It can happen.
There you go. More sex equals better sex.
Absolutely false. Fuck frequency. Fuck like measuring that in that way. I think that whole like how many times a week is the right amount.
Yeah.
There's all of these myths come into like, am I normal? Am I doing it right? And like, what if you did it in the way that felt right for you?
Totally. Because also like, and if you're with like in whatever capacity that is, but like if you don't feel good one day or you're having a bit of a shit week or you're going through something, you might not want to have sex 3 days a week if that's what Cosmopolitan's telling you.
Yeah. And also it ebbs and flows. Like there will be times in my life where actually like what I want is sex really frequently.
Yeah.
And if I'm able to do that, then great. I mean, I can always have a wank and that's a beautiful way of having sex. But like with other people, great. But also there are other times where I'm like, no, it's a couple months. I really just feel protective of my space. I don't need this right now. And that's allowed.
Yeah.
We're constantly ebbing and flowing.
I love that. People in long-term relationships stop having great sex. It actually happened for me. So, yeah.
Maybe honestly somewhere in the middle.
I think semi-truth.
I think it's something you have to be really conscious of. Any kind of longer term relationship, whether that's romantic or a friendship or with family, like it's something you actively have to continue building and putting time and care and like intentional connection into.
Yeah.
And the same is true for sex in long-term relationships, but it can happen.
Men think about sex every 7 seconds.
I love this one. I think some men think about sex every 7 seconds, but so do some other people too.
Exactly.
Also, who's measuring that? What are we doing?
How do you measure it?
What a little freak that they were like, I'm going to do this study. This is really important.
And also, like, it goes into like how reliable is it? Because like how there's a lot of, but like probably.
Look, there's a lot of horny people out there. There's a lot of not so horny people out there. They're all allowed to exist.
Anal is always painful the first time. Now, I will answer that. For me, it was that painful because I didn't really know. I didn't have education into sex, so I used conditioner.
Oh no!
Yeah,
no,
like,
that's so not the right thing to put in your body.
Yeah. I know. I realised that after.
I'm so sorry for your hole.
I know. It was a really sad time. And the thing was, like, he was older. Like,
I've never heard that one.
Really?
Mm-mm.
That was all that was there. I was on a sofa. I was like 15, 16.
Wow. I mean, I guess better than nothing, maybe.
It burned.
Oh.
So yeah, it was painful for me for the first time. But now we open and speak about stuff. Lubricant
and time. Take your time.
Foreplay. Yeah. You don't have to go wham bam, thank your ma'am straight away.
Yeah. No, you gotta ease into anything, but especially anal. Like patience.
Breathe. Yoga. You can't catch an STI from oral sex.
That's not true. You can. I think I have.
Yes.
Particularly chlamydia and gonorrhea. But
talking about sex kills the mood.
Like that is a myth, but also
I guess it depends.
It does depend. And like me 5 years ago would very much be like, no, oh my God, like you have to communicate about everything and it's so important to do, And sometimes there is such a thing as over communicating. And that's okay. But there are the basics, fundamental things that you do need to chat through. And that is never not sexy.
And that's what I mean. I think like it depends on talking about sex kills the mood. Like if you're wanting to explore and you're open, it can be really horny. You can get into that. One thing I've noticed in relationships in the past was like the planning of, we've got like free time at this window. Like I didn't like that so much.
Yeah.
Like I like the not the spontaneity, but like the passion. And I felt like it became less passionate and more like, we've got an hour there.
Something that happened to me quite recently, which there was no way around this. I was in a like group play environment, like a pool of absolutely fucking glorious dykey people. And because everyone's like sweet and cares about consent and communication, we were all talking about like what we like, what we don't like, how we want to be touched, like sexual health stuff, if you want to use like gloves or dams or all of that. But there were 5 of us. And that is too much information to maintain in my brain. And it started to feel like a board game of like, okay, so you are into like this kind, like no biting for you, but like biting and like nibbling goes there. And actually you're really into impact play. And like for you, it's this and and it stopped being sexy for me. I just really shut down because I was overwhelmed with, I was like revising for a test. I totally get what you mean. And that's even on Grindr categories, but it's got all the different things that you're into. Cause then it's like, well, and then you're messaging them and I'm like, well, what if I'm not into that and you want to do that? And then how are we going to, like, it can become a bit of a mind game. But for me, the biggest number one thing is energy. Yeah. Like it really is. I'm totally open-minded to explore depending on the energy and where that goes. And I'd say like open-minded, very few limits. Well, some, I won't go into them now. But like obviously not everything, but like I'm open, and I think that's the best way to be. Thank you so much for coming on here. Thanks,
but one final question. If there's one hope for the future for sexual liberation, what do you hope that would be? Or what do you think that should look like?
Oh, like abolition of rules. Like, of like state sanctioned, social scripted rules. And us, it's terrifying because less of a roadmap unanchors us. But I really believe in like the potential for exploration and freedom when you are less anchored by those structures.
Ruby Red, thank you so much.
Thank you, babe.